Good afternoon, Sophie. Good afternoon, everyone. And today we're going to cover Fife's ageing population and how they are turning to rentals and what that actually means for landlords, particularly here. So yeah, Fife's ageing population we're going to talk about. And obviously people are beginning to live longer and longer. And the ageing population of that older generation are starting to turn to rentals. So we're going to look today, Sophie, about what that is actually meaning for landlords. Now, rental figures from the Office of National Statistics reveal that across the entire UK, 486,795, so we're just shy about 500,000 households are occupied by individuals aged 65 and over who live in the private rented sector in a home that is obviously owned by a landlord. So this represents 6.71% of all OAPs, which is old age pensioners, that are now renting privately, just in case anybody didn't know.
I'm glad you had to clarify that. That's fine.
So 10 years ago, in comparison, only 267,704 households were occupied by individuals aged 65 or over, living in the private rented sector in a home, and that represented then 10 years ago only 4.39%. So it's jumped up a few points since then. So we're going to take a look at that today. So a 52.8% increase in OAPs privately renting. Okay, and the data raises two kind of crucial questions, I would say, for me, and I think everybody who obviously is aware of what we're obviously trying to establish here. How many of these older renters have been tenants their entire life, and how many have transitioned from home ownership to renting in their later years? So you know, some of them might have been people that have rented their whole lives, and some may have now turned to that option for renting in their later years. So here in fact, as in other parts of the country as well, downsizing and renting during the retirement can be a practical decision for the older generation, and it really enables them to access the equity tied up in their homes that they've had for a long time to possibly enhance their financial security. But why are more retirees now choosing to rent, and what opportunities does that present for the Fife landlord, or landlords in general, of course? What's your thoughts about that?
So, you know, why are retirees renting?
That's a question, because that's what we're trying to establish, why that is now.
And I think people are going to be surprised as we kind of discuss this and go throughout, but some of the kind of statistics, of course, we always support what we say with statistics, but I think some people will be quite surprised. But it is also something that maybe people haven't even thought of. But a survey by Prudential a few years ago shed light on this trend. Now, nearly 60% of older renters stated that they have actually always rented, reflecting a lifelong position in the private rental market, which is around 20% have sold their homes to maybe address debt challenges. And then another 10% have actually deliberately chosen to sell their properties and go to rented, using that, obviously, that funds from that sale to then fund their retirement. And then the remaining renters cite various personal reasons for their choice, and there'll be different circumstances and changes. There'll be the anomalies out there, but as a general rule, if you like, you've got obviously the ones that did it to address debt, as I say, then you've got the ones that chose to move from ownership to renting, and then the other ones doing it to fund retirement. But there is obviously different reasons out there.
Yeah, funding the retirement and having, because I mean we see it so much, and people have got so much equity built up in their properties over the years that they've lived in a home for 20, 30 plus years. They've got so much equity tied up in that, and some people never see it and never get the use of it or get to feel the benefit of that. So how important is that then?
Oh, it's increasingly important to have that financial stability. Is crucial, because if we were to kind of delve deeper and kind of break it down even more, then so men in Fife upon reaching 65 have a average, we'll use the word average loosely, life expectancy of 5.5 years after reaching 65, while women can expect an additional about 18.5 years as well.
You said, sorry, could you, men, you just cut us short there. Men, you said 5.5, it's 15.5.
Sorry, I did. Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to get rid of you earlier.
You just cut our life expectancy.
Yeah, I did. We're here longer. That's the long and short of it.
That is the short answer, yeah, but anyway.
Which is interesting when compared to the national average, and I'll not cut this, national average of 18.1 years for men and 20.6 years for women, not cut short.
This is their expectancy after retirement, yeah.
Yeah, after 65, yeah, that is the kind of average. However, longer life expectancies come with the challenge of then sustaining finances. So maybe you did want to just do 5 years, Richard, and you've not got to worry about finance.
I've got enough money to retire. 5 years will do, yeah.
That's enough. Because over an extended period, taking into account, inflation, rising living costs, the low interest rates, that erodes your retirement, that pot that you've dedicated for your retirement, it plummets, So
it definitely does, and that's what you see more and more. The amount that you need to be able to retire comfortably is just astronomical becoming, because of obviously, like you see all these things, living costs, interest rates, and inflation, and just everything that goes with that. Even as say, rising living costs includes fuel and shopping and just all these things. So yeah, as life expectancy becomes longer, retirement funds becomes more important. So these people that have got equity tied up in a property and they become a certain age, then it might make sense to release all this money, rent for these remaining years, and use that money to live. And it makes perfect sense. So
absolutely.
So really, we need to think about, like, obviously, thinking about obviously the rental landscape across the country, but obviously here in Fife as well. So the rental landscape in Fife. So 31.4% of people who live in Fife are 65 years or older. A significant majority of 69.5% own their home outright. So that's no mortgage, they've nothing left, so they've got all this equity tied up in there. And 5.3% own their home with a mortgage. In addition, social housing accounts for around about 18.1%, but we'll say 18% of these households as well. Yet a notable 4.5% of older homes, so that's 2,338 to be precise, homes are privately rented. So that's a really important start there, I think, for me anyway, especially dealing with lettings and things. So the figure, while it's small, is on the rise. And the anecdotal evidence from estate agents and local property professionals and things as well, they all indicate that more retirees in Fife are choosing to sell their larger homes, downsize to rented accommodation, and this decision often reflects the desire for simplicity, financial flexibility, and selling a family home can free up a substantial amount of equity, as I said, which older residents might use to assist possibly their grandchildren in purchasing their first homes. I mean, we see that a lot, first-time buyers. It's either bank of mum and dad, or it could be bank of gran and granddad, or because they've got all this equity tied up. Why not use it to live and help your family get on that property ladder and start their journey and things as well, and help them purchase their first homes. Secure, and possibly always to secure better returns through investments. They could obviously reinvest. A lot of people, I think, that have got a lot of equity in things, I've seen them use this to then even reinvest and start to build up their own retirement fund that way, or possibly just to enjoy a more comfortable retirement without having to worry about bills and making ends meet when you've got all this money tied up in property. Renting also does also offer that predictability with a fixed monthly expenditure that typically that includes obviously your property maintenance and potentially even services like gardening, and retirees can budget with confidence knowing that they've got their rent paid and they don't need to worry about extra. You know, if it's a property that's furnished, they don't need to worry about appliances breaking down or the boiler breaking down or roof repairs, and all these types of things. And this arrangement removes that financial and logistical burden from the people, like what you have with home ownership, and such as unexpected repair costs, and allowing for a more comfortable and carefree retirement for them. And renting also offers that flexibility and enabling older tenants to relocate with ease if their circumstances change. There's a lot of easier entry and exit, especially here in Scotland, with the private residential tenancy. If they started off in one property and then maybe their mobility and things changed, they could easily find another property and move fairly quickly. Or if they need to move possibly into assisted living or care facilities and things, there's a lot of flexibility with the 28-day notice to exit your current tenancy agreement and things as well.
Absolutely. And it's probably all those bits that you actually don't think of, but absolutely, I think, and even as a family member, somebody going into renting, and as you say, knowing kind of peace of mind with gas and electrics, if something was to go wrong, especially if maybe family members are not close by or anything like that, it's that peace of mind, a bit like obviously we have the property management team and you can contact them out with hours and everything as well. It's giving family that peace of mind as well, which is an element that's probably not even considered or thought of.
Yeah, we have a lot of obviously we have a lot of tenants that we look after and manage, and as agents we have not only obviously an agreement with the landlord or the investor as our client, we have the tenants are also our clients as well. And we have a duty of care as letting agents and managing agents to take care of them under the code of practice and things as well. And we've got a lot of older tenants, and they've become just kind of on a first name basis to walk into the office or speak to on the phone to help them, obviously, and on a daily basis, whether it's a maintenance thing or and it becomes a very, very close relationship with tenants that have been there for quite a long time, and they then don't have that worry of thinking of repairs and worrying about maintenance, things like that, because they know it's all taken care of by the agent or the managing agent that's in place. So yeah, definitely stress-free, and I think it's becoming more apparent to people that that's what they could do later in life rather than have the upkeep and, dare I say, burden of home ownership sometimes. In later life it can be, especially if it's a bigger house that there's only you and or you and your partner, to try and look after a big garden and a big house. It's quite a lot. So
definitely.
Yeah. It does also open a lot of opportunities for the Fife landlord then, as I say that, because if this is going to be then something that's becoming more apparent and kind of par for the course, it does kind of shift and present unique opportunities for Fife's buy-to-let investors and landlords. Older tenants often seek properties that are lower maintenance, as I said, and designed to suit their needs. Things like semi-detached bungalows, particularly those located near like amenities and transport links, GP surgeries and shops and things like that, they are in high demand, very much so, and especially by that kind of demographic and that age group. And these homes are often preferred for their accessibility and their practicality from their location in the local area. Plus, obviously, like I say, accessibility if they're all on one level in bungalows, things as well. And then, what about? I mean, obviously, that's for the tenant's point of view. I mean, what about from the landlord's point of view? Do you think then, Sophie?
Well, for landlords then, so flipping the coin, catering to this demographic can yield excellent returns Typically, retirees value stability, making them reliable long-term tenants. It's almost like when they're in there for good and they're no budging. Furthermore, if a property meets their needs and provides those additional conveniences that we've discussed, like your maintenance and etc., then they're often willing sometimes to pay kind of a premium rent for the right home and that peace of mind element. So that's where the landlords will obviously benefit from catering to that demographic.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's where it's like a win-win thing, because the older tenant, I mean, these tenants in this age group make the best tenants. They have to. I mean, obviously, all tenants are good tenants in their own respect, but at this age group, like you say, they're a lot more responsible. They know what they want. They know what they expect. And you know what to expect from them as well as tenants. They're happy if especially if it's things like I say, these popular kind of semi-detached bungalows and things that don't come up very often. If they're available, they'll happily pay a premium for it, as long as it's obviously finished to the right standard, and it's in the right location, and provides them with everything that they need in those years of their retirement and things. And it's a win-win, because then you as a landlord have a higher occupancy rate, which is one of your key indicators for obviously having a successful investment. You're going to have a good rental return, because obviously they're paying that wee bit extra. And so it's just you having those key indicators hitting on your targets for an investment point of view, but you're also providing a home and providing what they need as the tenant, and they're more than happy. So you're kind of helping each other out on both sides there, definitely. And and as I say, people in that age group, they're a lot more responsible, and as I say, they know what they want and they know what they expect. And you likewise could expect the same from them. So they're quite dependable is quite a good word to use a tenant at that age.
Yes.
So yeah, it makes it quite a good setup for any landlord and investor to have these kind of tenants, as long as you've got the right property to accommodate them.
Interesting.
So what about us thinking about the bigger picture for landlords and things, and not just in, I mean, we'll talk about Fife obviously because we're here, but then obviously for the whole country as well.
So as the population ages, the demand for rental properties suitable for older tenants is likely to grow. The Centre for Economics and Business Research stated in a report this summer that they expected the number of OAPs privately renting to double in the next decade. This trend presents both challenges and opportunities for landlords, obviously, as you've just discussed. By understanding the needs of this demographic and tailoring their portfolios accordingly, landlords can not only secure those steady returns, but also play a role in supporting the housing needs of the Asian community, which is obviously what we've kind of spoke about. So,
and that's where it's obviously it comes in that the life expectancy obviously is continually to rise. So what is going to happen with these older people and the sales market, as you'll know, Sophie, there isn't a lot of people are stuck, because when they try to downsize and buy something that's maybe a bungalow, which is what we use the term hen's teeth, maybe
teeth, that's our favourite saying.
So I mean, detached to semi-detached bungalows on the level in a good area with services and accessible and things, for them to sell their big family home that they've lived in for all these years and downsize and buy something, like there isn't a lot on the market. So then likewise, investors are going to find, right, okay, there's a gap here where we've got this age group that are looking, so they're going to want to start buying these types of properties to rent out to them as well. So then there's the problem, and then it all rolls back to, are we building enough houses? Are we building enough of the right houses? Because in order for us to increase housing stock and free up all these big houses that older couples are living in, which was once their family homes, for people to then move up the ladder and upsize, we need to be able to build accommodation for them to downsize into, whether they're buying it or whether it's a landlord investor buying it to rent to them. They still need to be there to be purchased. So that's the problem we've got.
Well, we worked with a client recently. You'll probably know which one I'm speaking about, Richard. But it was they were having to sell their property. He was in hospital. The hospital weren't letting him out until he was able to get one level living. He needed everything to be on the ground floor, and there was just nothing available on the market. So he was able to leave hospital, but they wouldn't release him because he had nowhere to go that was suitable. He was in a house. So we'd sold the house, but there was nowhere to go to, and he was trying to get a bungalow, and it was almost like drawing to stalemate because what was he meant to do? And the ideal thing then would have been to go into rented, where there would have probably been more opened up, but that's a circumstance as well that isn't really thought of. I can get out of hospital. I'm physically well to get out of, but I can't. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing on the market, as we say, they're like hen's teeth.
Yeah.
So we had that recently.
Yeah, it is fair to use that. I mean, that saying, because they are very few and far between. Which then also, when they do become available, bungalows become on the market. They become a premium. They are premiumly priced, and they are quite sought after as well. So they don't, and because of that reason, that pushes the price up, because there's so much noise and attention around any property like that comes on the market. And that's that then obviously drives up the asking price. So there's a few factors there, but definitely building these types of properties is the thing that needs to be looked at, definitely. So, and then I think from the private rented sector side of things, I mean, this demographic shift highlights the importance of creating these housing solutions that balance, profitability for an investor or a landlord. Obviously, we're going to say it because that's obviously what they need to be able to do to keep the property in their possession and keep obviously being able to rent the property out successfully. They need to make some sort of profit, but also have that social responsibility as well. Now, as lenders in the Fife property market, I mean, as leaders, in the Fife property market, agents like ourselves and other agents and things, we must champion approaches that meet these emerging needs. So obviously, as I say, as this age group comes in, and obviously you're trying to obviously meet the demands of the people that are looking, and especially like this age group, while promoting a long-term sustainable or sustainability within the rental sector, to be honest. So there's a balance you need to find there. And that's definitely what needs to be looked at.
Yeah, and as always, we're keen to hear your thoughts and obviously your questions. So probably a topic that people weren't, one, expecting, but two, now we've discussed it, it's actually food for thought, whether they are sitting with a family member and that could benefit from looking at what other options there are out there. It's probably something that hasn't maybe been considered, but as always, open for questions and comments, and definitely looking at the right guy for it.
I think it's good, as you say, we always in these midweek shows run through the stats and look at the figures, and depending on what topic we're discussing. And obviously today is about the ageing population, and life expectancy obviously is starting to be longer, and how people approach to housing and where they live is changing, and it is starting to lean towards people renting as opposed to staying in their homes, and obviously releasing that equity and things. But it's good to hear other people's thoughts. So anybody that's watching and has any thoughts on this topic, please jump in the comments. If it's a rerun, obviously we do this live today, but it runs again. If it's a rerun, jump in the comments and put something in. We'll always come back. Or even if you're sitting, like you said, Sophie, that was quite a good point. If you have a family member, or you have obviously, or older family members and things, or you're an older person yourself, and you're thinking about what's your next move going to be, do I sell and then buy to downsize, or do I sell and use equity and I rent for X amount of years, and do I have enough money to do that, and think, have a wee think about what the opportunities are available to you. And by all means, it's something that we deal with, obviously, from the rentals and obviously the sales side as well. So any questions anybody may have, then feel free to come to us. We're always happy to have a wee chat and give you as much advice, or point you in the direction of the right person to give you that advice.
And I always say to clients when we go out and they maybe are, you know, of that age and they're thinking about their options, I always say to them, you're better doing something while you're able to make the decision and it's on your terms than you're in a position and a situation where the decision's either getting made for you or you're having to panic and do something you don't necessarily want to do. You're better to, as we always say, get yourself informed, get your ducks in a row, get yourself organised and make the decision while it's your decision.
Do you know, yeah, that you're totally right. And do you know another point as well? And I think a lot of people do this, and it's they've got all this equity tied up in their house, and they think it's fine. I've left it all with the kids, but then the kids are going to have to lose you to get the benefit of that. Do you know? So while you sit in a big house that really maybe you don't need, do you know? Think about downsizing, getting that equity out, and maybe passing someone to your kids earlier to let them maybe get onto the property ladder, or your grandkids. Do you know? And then you could actually see them enjoying that money rather than have to wait till you've passed away, which is what happens a lot of time.
Make memories.
Make memories. And also as well, I mean, we see it quite a lot of people get to that time in life and care home costs and things as well, and their whole estate is more or less depleted to cover it, which is a shame, and in the wrong circumstances sometimes it could be quite detrimental to everything that they've worked for all their days and things. So, do you know, there's a lot of things to think about. So, anybody has any views on that, please jump in the comments and come back to us. I would be happy to hear your views. But I think that was quite an interesting take on a section of the private rented sector and the letting side of things that a lot of people maybe don't think about, and it is becoming more common as life expectancy, not just here in Fife, but in the country as a whole, starts to increase, and people's approach to how they live, and definitely the older aged or the more mature tenant is becoming more popular.
I like that. Yes, let's go with that.
So yeah, we'll leave it there today. That was great, Sophie. Thanks for your input, and hopefully that was some interesting insights to people watching. And we will catch you next week, probably as usual. And until then, I will see you later, Sophie, and thanks everybody for watching.
Have a great week.
Thanks, guys.